Hello, and welcome to the Echelon Studios podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Randall. Today we have with us the director and co-writer of An Electric Sleep, Theo Brown, and we also have the co-writer and producer, Ben Taylor. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Jesse.
Thanks for having us, man.
So tell us a little bit about the film.
Yeah, well, Electric Sleep is the story of this homeless vagabond that has this deadly illness and finally decides, like, I want to find the cure for it or find out where it's from. Like, it just kind of seems like there's more to it than kind of meets the eye. And in tracking down the elusive couple that created this disease, things ensue because it's, that bit of a sci-fi, psych thriller kind of thing like that, where reality isn't what it seems, all while being hunted by like this mercenary group that's also been trying to eliminate this couple and pretty much eliminate all loose ends off the map.
And I'd like to add, we wrote this before the pandemic, so
Wow.
so I don't know if that gets us in trouble. Now we're on the most wanted list, or we're just prophets. But this was not inspired by the pandemic. We were first.
I've had some collaborations with co-writing stuff with people, and for me personally, it has never ended well, and I won't be doing it again. And I'm always very impressed when I see co-writers collaborating on a project that they seem to have a good rapport, like the two of you. That being said, what was the most challenging part of working with each other and working with a co-writer?
Theo and I, from the day we met, we knew we were the opposite sides of the same coin. So deciding to work on this thing together, there was a lot where we were already on the same page and same wavelength, but there definitely was an acceptance of, especially when I handed it off to him and became producer so he can direct, I definitely had to be very trusting. But even in the writing process, there was just kind of this extra level of getting on the same wavelength. Thematically, he asks questions that I don't ask.
I think we all, I guess, as all creatives, but especially for BJ, or writers, myself, whomever, there's always there's us in the work. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's like maybe like this little part where, like, even for myself, like I might have something where I'm like, oh, this makes sense to me because it might not be, like really brought up or questioned or anything like that. But when it is, then that's like the part where it's like, okay, how do I defend this in a way that actually makes sense? Because other people, it's not just BJ that has to understand what I'm saying, but down the line, the DP, the production designer, you're going to have to keep answering these kind of questions. So it was very helpful actually for us to kind of get on that same page from the inception and like go through that when it came to writing the project. Because like after that, 99% of the things were pretty much handled. Really wasn't until we started getting to editing where new challenges arrived because we're in a later part of the journey.
What were the biggest challenges during production? Were there other surprising things? Or
film production is just Murphy's Law. Every day, like literally anything that could go wrong, we have to stop and look at each other and say, does it affect the story? Right, there were so many things. The human element, you have human beings who they want to help, they want to be involved, and they were. But, by day 3, they're like, wait, how many more days? Just the elements of nature, weather can get in the way. People injuring themselves, thankfully offset. But unfortunately, that's adding time. The pandemic just added years to our post-production. We anticipated that because this would be our first baby, there's still a lot that we're going to learn, mistakes and all that. So we preferred that we'd experience all these things on this budget because, more money, more problems. And I'm so glad because we were kind of given this opportunity to learn and to kind of have grace in the choices that we had to fix the problems. And to make sure, again, I said it before, everything kind of came down to like, all right, we got this problem, but what choice is going to service the story as opposed to hurt the story? Because that's really what it kind of comes down to, right? Is we're trying to tell a great story here. And although, we need that location, does this location still service it? Does it give it a nuance? And is that nuance something we want? It was just kind of like a constant dance with good old Murph.
But I think also I mean, it's like you said, more money, more problems, right? I'm sure Gladiator 2, that's, I think, just filming or whatever. They're having much different problems than we're having, right? Like every production has this thing, whether it's a commercial, rather it's a feature or something like that. So, I mean, outside of like a couple of like just unforeseen things, I can't really remember anything that like happened that was just so, I can't believe we didn't plan for this kind of thing, because we were able to use our pre-production time so wisely, I think. So by the time like, things come up on set and stuff like that. But like BJ said, it's like we already kind of had like, okay, if this goes wrong, then here's the plan B. And if plan B goes wrong, here's plan C. If plan C goes wrong, here's plan D.
Yeah.
Occasionally, you pivot to plan B. Sometimes you pivot to plan C. Sometimes you might have to drop down to plan D, but plan D gives you a completely new approach that almost in a way you're like, this should have been plan A. I think a great example was we have like some outdoor scenes. We knew it was going to be, mercenaries sneaking, trying to find this home off the grid. We had kind of had like some ideas. It's kind of like, maybe like a foresty kind of thing, but we couldn't really find one that worked for like, with permits and all that kind of stuff. But as it turned out, there was a guy that we were able to use his farm effectively as like, he had a couple different locations because the space was so wide, and he had this huge like rocky deposits in like the middle of the field, like in kind of like a open forest. And there's like this abandoned, burned out tow truck there that was not written in, but man, it made like for some great visuals. Again, especially at the budget that we're operating at, that was something that wasn't even on our cards. Probably a plan D. They got moved to a plan A. Out of necessity breeds innovation.
What has surprised you most about the way audiences have perceived the film?
Something that I hear all the time is screen the movie, and you'll usually have like one or two or three people come up, and they're trying to say it in a polite way, but they're like, we know the filmmakers, we could see the product, but it feels like, and they're almost, they want to say it feels like a movie. Like that's really what they're, because you almost seem like wrestling, because, they're not trying to be disrespectful, but they're almost like, but it feels like a movie. And I think that's just one of the best surprises that I love seeing the audience have, because that was something, again, that was just so intentional, working with our colorist, and our sound designer and our DP, like on set, those little nuances that people might associate with seeing something on an AMC or Cinemark or something like that. You're seeing that in our film. And people used to expect that with certain kind of budget levels, and like being able to give that. Now I've said all that, probably the biggest surprise is that how well it plays on a big screen, because we never intended for this, to be like on like a big, like a theatrical screen. Like that was actually like our one thing going in. It's just like, we're like, well, BJ, we always know this thing will be played on like a 55-inch TV at max. Like we're going to do the absolute best we can. It's graphics heavy, all these things, but hey, this is going to be watched from the comfort of people's homes, underneath the covers with popcorn in hand. And then you're getting like an email saying, hey, so it's going to be playing at the AMC in Culver City. And we're just like, well, let's see how it plays. And then you watch it, you're just like, this is great. It's almost like, we planned for this. We planned for this 30, 70 foot screen or whatnot, so.
I got to piggyback on that because we weren't really thinking about festival while we're working on it. We're very much sold on the idea of, let's make a great film. Let's take it to AFM. Let's get it on streaming services. Let's rinse, repeat. But then we shifted our thought, really thinking about kind of our friends and family around, the country. Kind of, we wanted people an opportunity to kind of celebrate with us. And so we submitted to festivals kind of like on a whim. And like literally the next week, we get into this festival in our backyard. We're living in Mid-City at the time, which is stone's throw from Culver. And I know the theater. In fact, I grew up, in and around that center and going to see other movies there. And then it's just like, the screening was going to happen in a week. And so now I'm texting people like, hey guys, like I know it's last minute, but, and that idea of like people being surprised. My parents flew down from Northern California to come see the movie. And, of course they're going to support. But then after the movie, I could see on their face, they were just like, you made a real movie? Like, this is what you've been doing all these years? is you made something real. Like there was like this. It went beyond pride. It was almost like they were just so surprised.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe you made a real sci-fi movie.
Wow.
And it was such a weird like moment to kind of take that in. Like, that's probably the best compliment I can get.
And you can catch An Electric Sleep on Momitu and coming soon to other streaming platforms. Thanks for being on the podcast, guys.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you.
It's great.